Login accepted.
All right, welcome to Get Ready for Jakarta E10. Did anyone of you attend the GeekCon a month ago? Yeah, so it's a slightly variation of that talk. So it's some of it's a repetition, but a lot of it is new as well. So my name is Ivar Grimstad. I'm the Jakarta E developer advocate at Eclipse Foundation. And these are my contact information. If you want to reach out to me on Twitter or LinkedIn, feel free to do so. Also, you can see my GitHub here, where I share a lot of the code we're working on, and all the demos are on my GitHub as well. I'm a Java champion, and I'm involved in the Java community process, where I represent the Eclipse Foundation. And obviously, I worked with Jakarta E. Also a little bit involved in Apache with NetBeans there, and run Java user groups in Malmö in Sweden. So that's all about me. Let's move into talk about Jakarta EE. And when we talk about Jakarta EE, we talk about specifications. And with specifications, we mean, in our case, that we have some sort of document, we have some sort of API artifact, and a test kit, or test compatibility kit, or TCK for short, that we use to test that an implementation implements a specification. So that means we can have compatible implementation, they pass the TCK, and then if we have at least one open source compatible implementation that passes the TCK, that means we have a final specification, and it's valid to be used by others. And right now, we are just about to release Jakarta E10. It will probably slip a little bit into July, but what I saw on Twitter and emails today is that I think Glassfish is passing the TCK for Jakarta E10, and that means that we can start the ballot and get the specifications ratified. And what is Jakarta E10 consist of? So you're probably familiar with some of the specifications from Jakarta E9, 8, and Java EE. And these are the specifications that are a part of the Jakarta E10 platform. And all the blue ones are updates from this release. So you see it's a fairly massive release where most of the specifications are updated in some form. Those with the .1 behind the version number is a minor update. It doesn't mean that it's insignificant changes. It just means that they're not breaking anything or removing anything. Whereas those with the .0 behind, that's major updates. So they may break things, or they add so much stuff that they think it's valid to bump the version number. And the gray ones here are the ones that are so stable that we're not touching it for this release at least. And one in the corner, CDI Lite, is a new specification, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So if you gray out the more enterprisey kind of these specifications, we're left with a set of specifications, which is a subset of the platform, and that is the web profile. And web profile has been with us since Java E6. And as you see, most of the specifications within a web profile are updated as well. So if we take away the more traditional web applications, those focused on UI like servlets, faces, JSPs, and that kind of stuff, and we're left with a set of specifications that we group together and call the Jakarta E10 core profile. And the core profile, that's a new profile for E10. And these specifications are targeting headless services or RESTful endpoints or microservices, if you want. So these specifications are typically the set of specifications you would need for creating a simple microservice, and that's what core profile is all about. We're also raising the Java SE level with Jakarta E10. Previously, we've been based on Java SE 8. Now we're raising it to 11. That means that all the APIs are compiled to 11 binary level. So in order to use Jakarta EE 10, you have to go to 11. You cannot use 8 anymore. We're also making sure that the TCK runs with 11 and 17. And that means that if you want to go with 17, and most of you probably want, then you can use 17 with Jakarta EE 10 as well. We're testing it for 11 and 17. Everything in between there, feel free to go, but we're kind of targeting the LTS releases of Java. So anything you hear about Jakarta EE 10 doesn't support Java 17, that's wrong, because we do, and we test for it. And the key is that the TCK is made to run with 11 and above, and we're testing it for 11 and 17. So I'll go through a couple of these specifications. I won't go through all of them. I want to go into some code demos as well. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Security 3.0. And security has been with us since Java EE 8. It is a fairly new specification in that regard. And in version 3.0, they are adding features and evolve the API beyond what they created in version 1.0. Version 2.0 was just a namespace upgrade. So between 2 and 3, they're actually adding things. And the things they're adding for this release is support for OpenID Connect. And that is something we've been waiting for. And this is sort of it shows how well built this API were in version 1.0, that how easy it is to create and add new authentication mechanisms. And you can have used OpenID Connect with Jakarta Security before as well, but now we have a standardized way of doing it. And the other updates with the security specifications, there are actually 3 of them. In addition to security, we have authorization and authentication as well. And these are more of the low-level service provider APIs that the vendors of the application servers are using to be able to give you these features that are exposed to the developers through the security APIs. So and they also done a lot of fixing their aligning things and to create a foundation for future work with better CDI alignment and whatnot. So we can add more things in the coming. But the big thing is OpenID Connect. With Persistence 3.1, it's a minor update. So they're just adding features and evolving the APIs and maintaining backwards compatibility. And as you see, the URL structure here is jakarta.ee/specifications and then / the short name for the specification. And this is where you can find all information about all the specifications. So just if you remember jakarta.ee/specifications, you have a starting point for all the information I'm talking about here. Persistent 3.1 adds support for UIDs in a standard way. You may have used it with Hibernate or Eclipse Link before, but now it's standardized. So if you, as in this example, I'm using UIDs as primary keys. You don't need to use them as primary keys. Maybe that's not a good idea, but you can use it in a regular database column and have it generated for you, and you don't have to do this stuff yourself. Let's also look at RESTful Web Services. This is also a minor update where they are focusing on maintaining backwards compatibility, but also updating the API with some features that are requested by the community. And one of those features that has been requested for a long time is support for multi-part formed data. That means that you can now upload files through the APIs in a standard way. You may have used it with REST-DC before, but then you've used the REST-DC APIs. Now it's all standard, so you can move between implementations. Another actually pretty cool feature Jakarta RESTful Web Services has added is a way of bootstrapping with Java SE. So you don't need an application server to use Jakarta REST anymore. And this has been possible to do with a vendor-specific way. Now it's portable across implementations. And I'll actually demo this one. And I'll demo this with a super simple application, just returning a JSON string. and saying how did Jakarta? It won't say 9. It will say 10. But I'll demo this quickly. So I have this application. I've called it Bootyduke here, and in this case, I set it up to create a jar. So it's not a war anymore. I'm using plain Java SE, and I'm just using the Maven assembly plugin to create a jar for me. And for dependencies, I need the Jakarta RESTful Web Services API, and this is a provided scope. I don't need to bundle it in the jar because it's in the implementations. And since I'm here, I don't deploy it into an application server. I have to provide the implementations as well. And here I'm using REST-easy for this, and I just have to have the core of REST-easy, the web server, and the JSON binding properties. And if you were using Jersey, we use a similar kind of dependencies just for Jersey. Let's look at the code. I have a greeting here. It just returns how did Jakarta RESTful Web Services as a bootstrap through a GET request. So it's a super simple application. And the way I can do this is how you normally configure a Jakarta REST application. You say this is my application. So if I wanted to bootstrap this, I need a main method somewhere, and it makes sense to put it here in this class. You can put it wherever you want, but let's create a main method here. And the first thing I need to do is add some configuration, and I have some configuration here, and as you'd expect, I have to set up some root path, some port, and then just build the configuration through this builder API. Of course, there are other parameters I can do. It's a Fluent API there, so you can configure it in any way you want. You can also omit some of these, and it will take the default. But this is kind of the minimum you would need. The next thing I'm going to do is to just instantiate the application. And here I'm instantiating, and you can see the Duke application here. It's myself. So I'm instantiating the configuration class for Jakarta REST. And the last thing I need to do is to just start it. And what I'm doing here is I call SE Bootstrap the static method start here, and I pass in the app and the config I've created up here. And then I just have some system on print lines, and I just wait for it until I press Control-C. And also I have to add the interrupted exception here. And that's all I have to do. So what I can do now is to just open a terminal here, Maven clean package. And then there is built, and then I can run it with Java jar, and it's in target, and it's booty with dependencies. And it starts fairly quickly. You can see here it runs on port 8081. So let's go and open local host 8081, Bootyduke, and you can see it returns what you'd expect. So it's fairly simple. It's a standard Jakarta REST application, and you just have to configure it in this Bootstrap API, and it's standard. So if I just replace the dependencies in my POM here from REST-easy to Jersey, I just have to rebuild my jar and run it. My application would be exactly the same because I'm not using any REST-easy specific stuff. So that's kind of the standardization of it. Let's look at the core profile. And the core profile it's all about targeting smaller runtimes. And with the smaller runtimes, we are talking about the runtimes like Helidon, Quarkus, Micronaut, and etc. We can also talk about Wildfly, Glassfish, Payara Micro, and the The compatible implementation used to ratify this specification is actually Wildfly. So core profile can be used in many different contexts and sizes. But these are just some I listed as these are potential. I know Helidon and Quarkus are probably going to do it later this year or next year. Get certified on core profile. And the key element of core profile is CDI Lite. And with CDI Lite, we've designed a CDI version that is kind of designed to run in more restricted environments. And with more restricted environment, we're talking about doing all the dynamic things that CDI is so good at doing at runtime, but doing it at build time. So extensions, for example, that you discover when you start the application, these are now discovered when you build the application. And that means we needed a new extension API. So the good old portable extensions has been duplicated with the API we call build compatible extensions. So you can create CDI extensions that are dynamically discovered and configured at build time. And that means you can compile to native using the GraalVM native compiler and get native code out of it. So that's kind of all the key about these new extensions and dynamic at build time features with CDI Lite. To achieve this, we also changed the behavior of the empty beans XML. So if you're used to and kind of you expect that empty beans XML means that everything is injectable, now you will get a failure when you start the application because now it's annotated that is the default. And I can actually do a fairly quick demo of this. Let's take this jar I created in the previous demo. Let's convert this to a war. There you go. Let's also, rather than using this dependency, let's add a dependency for Jakarta Web API, version 10. Let's have this one provided. And then we can take all these other dependencies, REST-easy, all this stuff. We don't need that, so let's ditch that. And now I have the same application. I don't need this main method, but it doesn't harm being there. I'm building it as a war. So let's just refresh my POM here. There we go. And now I'm going to take this one and deploy it into a Jakarta E10 application server. And that is Glassfish 7 here. So I'll just add this one, the Bootyduke, add it to Glassfish here, and deploy it. And you see, it deploys fine. There's nothing weird here going on. It lacks some XML files, but this is not important. The thing you will discover is that if unless Glassfish is running on 8082, if I go to no, it's on 8080. Sorry. If I go to Bootyduke, hello, you'll see. Oh, it works. Crap! I didn't expect that to work. Sorry about that. It shouldn't work. And I tested it. I promise I tested it before. What I'm... oh, no. Yes. Everything is right. It is working because I'm not injecting anything. So let's do some injection here. I'll create a Duke's service class. That I'll just copy the content of a service class from a other application I'm using. So I'm saving some typing here. There you go. So I'll just copy this method, copy it over here. So I'm just doing a howdy Corduke. I'm creating this very simple service, and in my resource here, let's go to the correct one. In the resource, why isn't it compiling? Oh, I have one more. There we go. So in my resource, I'll inject the Devoxx service. You're with me so far? So what I'm doing is I'm just injecting this service, and then I'll call this find greeting method, comment out what I have here. So what I'm doing, I've just created a new bean. I'm injecting it, and I'm running. And this is something you would missing a return statement. Let me see. Okay, sorry. Return. There we go. So let's redeploy. So it deploys fine here, but if I now refresh it here, you can see it says, I don't know what's going on here. CDI is not enabled. So what I have to do, I can do one or two things. One is the default now is annotated. It's not all. So if I annotate my Devoxx service with something that has a CDI scope, for example, request scope there, and then redeploy it, it will work. So as long as you have a CDI scope, CDI discovers it because then it's annotated, and that works. The other way of fixing this would have been to add a beans XML and switch it to annotated. Right? But the easiest way is just do this and use the annotated rather than the all. And an annotated beans XML would typically be in the beans XML. It can be empty like this. Then it's annotated. If I set it to discovery mode all, it would. I can remove that annotation again. But the best way is to use the annotated. So I'm going right from this demo to another demo, and I'm going to do the switch, go a step back and see how to get. The title of this talk is "Get Ready for Jakarta 10," and part of getting ready for Jakarta 10 is to move from a previous version to 10, so I'll move from E8 to 9. And I do it fairly quickly, so we can get into some 10 demos rather. And the thing with the 8 to 9 migration is the namespace. And why should I care about the namespace? Well, even if you're not using Jakarta EE, you're probably using Spring or Jetty or Tomcat directly or Hibernate or something else, some libraries out there, and they are moving to Jakarta namespace. So if you're depending on some library that and want to stay on their latest version, you've got to switch. Spring 6, Spring Boot 3 coming out later this year have moved to the Jakarta namespace. So if some of the Jakarta APIs are rippling through to your application, like if you're using bean validation or if you're using Hibernate, you probably have some JavaX imports in your code. You're going to change to Jakarta. And this can be done with transformation. And transformation means that you can use one of these tools, Eclipse Transformer or the Apache Tomcat migration tool, and migrate your WAR files or jar files through this, and it will take the bytecode and just switches from JavaX to Jakarta for you. And you're done. But that's not very demo-friendly, so you can also use the IDE. So IntelliJ has this migration from Java EE to Jakarta EE. The correct would have been to call it Java X to Jakarta, because it doesn't really matter whether it's a Jakarta or Java application. It just takes everything that is on the JavaX namespace and transform it to Jakarta, except those that shouldn't change. There are still JavaX stuff that is perfectly valid that are part of the JDK. Or you can do it manually and do all these steps. And I'll actually blow through these steps in a fairly quickly pace. And if you want to test it out yourself, you can test out this Jakarta Devoxx application on my GitHub. It has a tutorial, step by step. You can do this just by yourself. And the application I'm using is, to give it a little bit of substance, I wanted to create a proper application that has a database, using some persistence API to retrieve the message, using enterprise beans to have some business logic around it, using Jakarta REST to produce a Jakarta JSON output, and also threw in a CDI extension so we can also demo and see how the differences are between a portable extension and a build-compatible extension. But let's start with the EE9 to 10 step, and then I'll also show the core profile afterwards. And yeah, this is the application. So let's go and look at these steps. So I'll start by doing the first 2 steps here. And to do this, I'm actually going to do let the IDE do the work for me. So I have this application called Complete Duke. You can see here it's on Java SE8, and it has a Jakarta E8 dependency here. The application itself is fairly similar to the one we looked at previously. This is my configuration. The resource is just calling a Duke service, the find greeting method, injecting it here. It's responding to the /hello endpoint on a GET request, and it produces application JSON. And it's also annotated with @Dukes that provides the CDI extension output in the log. I'll show that code afterwards. The business logic here is to find everything from a repository that is injected here. And here you can see this is annotated with @stateless, means that is a stateless enterprise bean. And the business logic is find everything, take the first one. If there isn't a first one, then just hard code it. So it's a fairly advanced business logic. And then the Duke's repository, I'm using the @dependent scope here. That means it inherits the scopes from the calling bean. And here I'm using the persistence criteria language to just select everything from Duke's greeting. And Duke's greeting, the Duke's greeting is my database entity. It's an entity in a table called greeting. It has a ID, message, and email field. So it's a fairly simple application. The portable extension is using this @Duke's annotation here, and just looks for it when the server starts up and prints the message from the annotation. And this is the way you would create a portable extension by implementing the extension interface. Let's go ahead and do this upgrade. And to do this, the way the IDE wants you to do it is to actually duplicate the dependencies here. So I'm going here from 8 and 9, both in the class paths. I'll refresh this. And then on the refactor menu, you have a step called migrate somewhere. I can see it there. Migrate packages and classes from Java E to Jakarta E. You can choose which part of the project, and it does stuff for you. I'll just do the refactoring, and we can look at the results. You can see if I go through this, they now have the Jakarta namespace. For some reason, it didn't pick up this one. Never seen that before, but okay, it's probably because I have both. For some reason, I haven't seen this before. That I did an update of IntelliJ this morning, so that was probably not smart. But let's get rid of the 8 dependency here and see if this one will operate. So it's Jakarta. There we go. So this it changes all the imports here from JavaX to Jakarta. So that was the first 2 steps in the tutorial. The next 3 steps are the XML namespaces, the properties, and the bootstrapping files. Let's go through this very quickly. I have one XML file in my application here, and that's the persistent XML. And this is using the old jcp.org XML namespace. So what we've done here is to replace jcp.org with we're adding security, so HTTPS, and then we have Jakarta.ee. So it's a fairly simple change, and you also need to change the location of the namespace. All of this can just be copied from the specification document because all of them have this here, so you will see just copy this header. Also, standard in Jakarta is to use the version of the specification in the file name, and now you can see it actually validates that the version I'm using here should be 3.0. So that is a search and replace you have to do in the namespaces that are Jakarta specific. The property files, and you can see here that I'm using these properties here to generate some data in the database. And these are JavaX persistent schema properties. And it's probably not very surprising that these are just to be changed to Jakarta. And you can see I get a code completion here since the schema is correct. So if you have any other properties, it could be in XML files, in other properties files, in databases, wherever. Just change the prefix from JavaX to Jakarta. Then the way of bootstrapping a CDI extension is to add the fully qualified class name of the extension in a file called JavaX Enterprise Inject SPI extension. And this one has to be renamed as well. So this file is going to be renamed from JavaX Enterprise SPI extension to Jakarta Enterprise SPI, Inject SPI. So it's very consistent what the changes are. It's always JavaX replaced with Jakarta. So it's fairly simple to do. You cannot do a search and replace all of your code base since there are still some JavaX that are in the JDK, but most of it can be replaced here. If you're a little bit careful, it's fairly quickly to take a rather big application and transform it. Let's just deploy this one quickly to Glassfish 6, since we're now on E9. Just to verify that it works. Deploy it here. It says something, okay, I have some port problems, but it doesn't affect our application. You can see here my CDI extension is discovering the extension. It's printing the messages in from the annotation in the log, so that works fine. Let's open this one, and it's called 8082. Sorry, complete Duck. Hello. Wasn't it on? Oh, sorry. 8082. There you go. So it says, how did Jakarta E9 with Java 17? But it's not 17 yet, right? We're running on 8. So let's switch this to 17. And so I've done all this. There are some verified data and dynamic content. I'll just skip that step now. What I want to do now is to bump this one to 17. So we're on Jakarta E9. I'll take these out and replace it with 17. Let's refresh this one. And since we're using 17, let's add some 17 features. And one of the features that are in 17 that actually came in 16 is records. And records are a useful thing. So let's call this Duke's greeting record. Create a record. Let's have this record have a string message and a local date. So records are, I just provide this one line of fields, and it generates the getters and setters for me. Right? So goodbye Lombok. And then I want to use this one in my resource, because if you remember from the application I'm using here, let me see here. Oh, sorry. There, that I'm exposing the entity all the way from the database out with the email and everything. And you normally don't want to do that. So what we want to do is to do a mapping to a DTO here, and we're going to use this record. So rather than returning the database entity through the JSON binding here, I'll use the record. And then I need to fix the business logic here to also return a record. And in the fabulous business logic here, after I find the first one, I'll just map it from the greeting in the database to a record. And I'll take the get message, and I'll take local date now. And I also need to, if I don't find anything in the database, I'll hardcode just hi and, oh, sorry, and the date should be also just use local date now. So now I've found it from the database, the entity, and I'm mapping it to the record, and I'm returning it up. So do you think this will work? If I just deploy this in GlassFish 6 on E9? Who thinks it works? None of you? Or one? Yeah, okay. The other I don't think it works. So if I press refresh here, we see, oh, it doesn't. It doesn't return anything. It's an empty JSON. And why is this? That's because the record it generates a method called data and a message called message. And the JSON binding that is part of Jakarta E9 observes the Java Bean pattern. And Java Beans needs a getter. So the way we can fix this is to fool the system and just call this parameter get message, and this one, oh sorry, there, and this one get date. So if I do this, redeploy it, and now it returns a date and a message because now it has a getter. If you look in this service here, you can see this is now a get date and a get message. So, but that's kind of ugly. So let's take the next step. We've done the transformation from 8 to 9. Let's go from 9 to 10 and also look at core profile. And this step is fairly simple, and it's basically the same as you would do if you go from 8 to 10, that I've already done now. But now I've done the kind of the migration thingy. So the only thing I need to change now when I go to 10 is the version number. So I'll just refresh this one. And then I'll take this one and deploy it to GlassFish 7, which is on E10, and deploy it. There you go. So if I now look at, and that's on 8080, I'll take the complete, let's see, complete the hello, and you see, it says how the Jakarta E9. But now you can see it says get date and get message. Because in E10, that implementation of JSON binding actually supports records properly. So that means that we can go back in our code and remove this ugly hack that we did with E9 and actually do it the right way and redeploy it here, and it looks much better. Right? We solved one thing. Let's also look at core profile. And here I have a simpler application, and I'm just focusing on the extension. So we're just going to look at the code and deploy it, and then we want to do any coding with this one. So I have the core Duke. You can see the resource here is the same, the record is the same, the Duke service is the one that hard-coded hello core Duke. The different with this one is the extension. And if you remember from we can look at the other extension. I'll open it here. This extension implements the Jakarta Enterprise SBI extension, whereas this one implements a build-compatible extension. So I have another extension interface, and this has a little bit more modern way of doing it, like it has annotations for the different phases of bean discovery. And this is, here I'm using the enhancement phase and looking for the Dux annotation. And it does the same thing, just prints out the content of the annotation. And the bootstrapping here, rather than having the bootstrapping file, if you remember this one, that was called Jakarta Enterprise Inject SBI extension. For the build compatible extension, this file is called, has a little longer name because, but it looks exactly the same. But it has this Jakarta Enterprise Inject build compatible. And if you think this file name is hard to remember, how am I going to remember this? Well, just look at what is the fully qualified path for the build compatible extension, and this is the file name. So you just have to switch the file name to the build compatible extension and implement the extension using the new API. And this is discovered at build time. It's nothing at runtime. So if I just deploy this one to Wildfly, it will look exactly the same, but it's actually not doing anything at build time as the web profile did. But this one will do it at runtime, and you can see it says found and high there. So the extension and everything works fine, and the application it's not that much of a thing, but you can see it returns whatever you expect it would do. All right, let me see. We have 7 minutes left. So this was Jakarta 8, 9, and 10 in a very fast-paced demo, doing all the conversions and stuff. And if you feel this was hard to follow, check out the GitHub repository and try it out yourself. Or talk to me. I'm here all day tomorrow, so I'll just be wandering around. So if you see me wearing this shirt, just come to me and we can have a chat. Let's talk a little bit about what's coming after 10. And after 10 is 11. That's not very super hard to figure out, but the work with 11 starts now. As soon as we are done with 10, we start working with 11, and we have already started. This is me speculating. Should we raise the API, the S11 to 17, or should we stay on 11? Should we allow for some APIs to go to 17, or how should we do this? We have to have some strategy around this. This is some discussion we need to have. And we probably should have it fairly quickly so we know what we're aiming for. And we will probably release 11 around the time or a little bit after SE21 is out. And SE21 is the next LTS release, and it's coming next fall. So it's a little bit more than a year. Then we are on 21, and that's the next LTS. So we need to figure out how, and we absolutely have to make sure that we run on 21. So that's something we need to discuss. Jakarta config is in the works. It's standardizing portable configuration from environment-aware sources. You can typically inject a configuration, something like this, with some properties here and there. And you can move it through different environments. If you, for example, deploy it into Kubernetes, it will pick up the properties there. Or if you deploy it on your laptop, it will pick up the properties there. So it will kind of be environment aware, and you don't have to rebuild the application. Jakarta MVC has been around for a while. It's not a part of the platform. I'm kind of biased here since I'm the spec lead for this one, or one of the project leads. But I would like to see this as part of somewhere of the platform, whether it's in the web profile or if we do some other kind of pick and choose palette of specifications and skip the profiles, whatever we do. I think this has a place, especially now that we see server-side rendering is actually coming back again. We're going full circle on this. So, and this is building. It's built on top of Jakarta REST. So it's rather than having a produces JSON, you just add an at view, and you can use Thymely for, in this case, JSPs or whatever. We have 12 different view engines, and it's easy to create your one yourself. And it's the at controller annotation that kind of controls everything here. Jakarta NoSQL is also in some beta 4. It's standardized integration with NoSQL databases. That's probably something we want to see somewhere in the future in the platform. Jakarta RPC is standardizing gRPC within Jakarta EE. This is a new project. It hasn't been really going active yet, but there are a lot of people interested in this, so this will be an exciting thing. Jakarta Data, it's a project proposal going through community review now, and will probably be up for ballot within a couple of weeks. And that's standardizing the repository pattern for data access. And it will typically be similar to Spring Data or Delta-Spec data, that kind of repository thinking. So this is also a very interesting specification. This is me throwing out things. Jakarta functions, why not? I mean, would that be interesting? Have some kind of cloud function standardized so you can move it between the cloud vendors. Move it from Azure to AWS to Google to IBM Cloud or Oracle Cloud without rewriting your function. And what should be standardized? I'm just throwing it up there. It's not going to be in Jakarta 11, but it's something interesting I would like to see someone talking about. To sum up, EE9 is soon yesterday's news because that was all about the namespace change, and we have all moved over to Jakarta namespace now, so we can forget about the JavaX namespace. And Jakarta 10 is coming probably in a couple of weeks, and there's a lot of new specifications there. All of these updates, and CDI Lite is kind of an interesting thing for if you want to compile to native. The core profile, it's a brand new profile, allowing for smaller runtimes and also compiling to native in a standardized way. We are raising the level to Java SE 11, but you can use 17 or above if you like. There is some little caveat there. Above 17, they're messing with the security manager, so that's also something we need to address in the future Jakarta release, how to handle that. You can find all the information you want and need about Jakarta EE on jakarta.ee. That's the only URL you need to remember for today. So Jakarta.ee, that's where you find everything. If you write something about Jakarta blogs or want to read something about Jakarta, you can get your blog listed on Jakarta blogs. It's an aggregator that a lot of community people are writing things, and it's just their RSS feeds are republished on Jakarta blogs. So if you are writing a blog and want to have some traction around it, sign up for this. It's very easy. It's kind of submit a GitHub issue and you're listed. I write on my blog, it's also on Jakarta blogs, weekly about, I call it hashtag Jakarta EE. It's a weekly update of what's happening with Jakarta EE. And then the demo with the tutorial for the namespace change on my GitHub called Jakarta EE Duke. I think you can Google Jakarta EE Duke and you will probably end up there. That's what I had. So thank you very much for listening, and I have a couple of minutes for questions. And I also have some stickers there, so if you want to stick around, you can get a sticker. Thank you very much.